potential for the Wuhan virus pandemic surfaced, we now know, as early as 2018. The U.S. State Department cables warning of safety issues at the Wuhan Institute of Virology that was studying bat coronaviruses. U.S. officials made frequent trips to the laboratory. They warned of the potential for human transmission of a new SARS-like pandemic. And despite those warnings, the U.S. National Institutes of Health awarded a nearly $4 million grant to the Wuhan lab studying the virus. What were they thinking? Well, joining us tonight to take all of this and more up, Dr. Michael Pillsbury, director of the Center for Chinese Strategy at the Hudson Institute, author of the 100-Year Marathon. Mike, it is great to have you with us. This early warning coming from the State Department about Wuhan, the virology lab there, combine that with the warnings from the Taiwanese to the World Health Organization last fall. Why was there not a better understanding of what we were dealing with on the part of the World Health Organization and the Chinese government itself?
Well, first of all, Lou, there's a lot of wishful thinking about China being open and our friend and sharing things with us. You find in the story of this laboratory in Wuhan that we're deeply involved in it. The University of Texas was providing support to them. The lead researcher, Dr. Shi, she has been to the U.S. a lot. She's the subject of a profile. Her nickname in China is Bat Lady. Dr. Shi goes to bat caves, extracts the bats, gets the viruses out, and then cultivates them in the laboratory. Now, what she was apparently doing is revealed in these cables, but a lot of American scientists who know her, they already knew this, Lou. She is adding something called gain of function to a virus, to a coronavirus. In theory, this is extremely dangerous. Why would the United States fund her to do this? That's an open question at this point. It's beginning to look like the wet wildlife market theory is not correct. That's a theory that China started, that these cases somehow are coming out of that market. So our senators were calling for the market to be closed. They may be on the wrong track. It may be that it's the CDC and other American agencies helping the Chinese. They wanted more money. These two cables revealed they wanted more money to go to the lab to help Dr. Shi be more safe. Now, why is that? Because one of the gain of function features is to see if it spread more rapidly to humans. They don't necessarily spread to humans. So this is very dangerous research. We did it too in the Atlanta in the CDC. We had an accident about 2004 or so. So these scientists may have been sent down from our embassy to Wuhan to make sure the same kind of accident we had in Atlanta didn't happen with her, perhaps far more dangerous viruses. So now this is a whole new theory, Lou, that instead of the wildlife market where there were no bats, I mean, bats don't get sold there, this may have a different origin, which in turn affects what could happen next. The mystery is getting deeper, Lou.
Well, as you say, the wet market doesn't trade in bats, at least as far as we know. But the virology lab certainly was, as you point out, conducting experiments on the so-called horseshoe bat that was all part of the early messaging from Beijing. This also sounds less like academic scholarly research than it does, frankly, biological warfare. Could you tell me the distinction here that would put all of our concerns to rest about that very issue?
Yes, that's a question that the Chinese don't want us to think about, Lou, because there are these books on biological warfare by Chinese generals that talk about engineering viruses. This cannot be covered up. The books have been published as long as 5 or 6 years ago. So if this is what the Chinese call the seventh domain of war, and viruses are important to it, then this kind of research makes more sense. And as I looked into some of these articles Dr. Shi and others have written, a Chinese general shows up. He's part of the research team. He writes articles on viruses. He got promoted from all this. So as I say, the mystery is getting deeper, And what has been destroyed now is the illusion that the Chinese would somehow tell us everything, maybe apologize for what could have been a terrible accident. Perhaps that's what it is. It's just an accident and they're lying about it. I hate to think if it's much worse, if we've stumbled onto a Chinese biological warfare program that we barely understand, but that their military has been writing about. And they've got a military medicine academy in China, Lou, that actually publishes on the use of these kinds of viruses for warfare. So this is getting to be a very deep mystery, and it could bode very poorly for friends like Joe Biden in the future.
Well, and General Milley today, the chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is saying basically, we don't think it was a weapon, but we don't know for sure. We think it's natural, but we don't know for sure. Now, that's very troubling, given the level of intelligence that we have, the level of medical and scientific sophistication that we have, that we can't make a distinction and a discernment as to whether or not we're looking at a bioweapon or an accident that created a animal to human transmission of a deadly virus.
Yes. There's a very famous spy thriller. I won't give the name for advertising reasons. It's not mine. But it's about the first 400 pages of the spy thriller book are the quest to discover if there's a bioweapon or not. In this case, it goes back to a laboratory in Syria. I'm not giving too much away about the plot. But the point is, forensic analysis of a virus is very difficult to do without interviews and the discovery of the lab and what was going on. So what is still so suspicious is why Xi Jinping declined President Trump's, I think, very kind offer back on January 6th to send an American team to Wuhan. This is where the suspicion is just getting to be too thick.
Yeah. It is too thick, and it was interesting as I talked with Dr. Anthony Fauci in that period. I would ask directly about that, and he did not want to accept the idea that China has said no to the United States to sending our scientists there. He was holding out hope, I think, that they might relent. As you suggest, there is a view in this country that China is quite different, a sunnier place than it truly is,
yes.
A less authoritarian and communist place than it really is. But I think reality is catching up with all of us now, don't you?
I do, and Dr. Fauci has been very frank in some of his lectures about his attempts by phone to contact his old friends in China to get them to either accept the president's offer or to tell us more about the origins of the virus. And he's a good diplomat, but I think Dr. Fauci was quite disappointed at the secrecy of his old friends in China. To me, this is just another example of how we are underestimating China's competitive drive to surpass us. And that's really what they want to come out of this coronavirus crisis, is to be number one in the world.
And what they are now is the number one story for certainly this decade in what they have unleashed on the world. I want to commend to you and the Hudson Institute the Wuhan virus timeline. We are going to put up the contact for that, the address, and I recommend each of you go to the Hudson Institute website to take a look. It's revealing. As is always, Dr. Michael Pillsbury. Mike, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.